Hello and welcome back to Dawn Chorus Writes, a Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction and audio fiction. This is the new miniseries for Ladrien June and it's called Chance Encounter and we're on part 2. So I hope you're enjoying it so far. Massive shout out and thank you for Dori for the beautiful commission piece for the thumbnail. So make sure you go and send her some love. All her information is down below. Make sure you send me some love by smashing that like button. Comment down below what you think of it and what will happen in the next part, and make sure you subscribe so you do not miss out on future parts, other series that are happening and other one-shots to come. And I hope you enjoy. Part 2. Adrien is 21 years old and is trapped. Great, just great. Okay, so how was he going to get out of this one? The pain emitted out of his shoulder caused a fog to filter through his mind and muddling his thoughts. How could he allow himself to get so caught up in yet again one of his father's tricks and dealing with the chaos afterwards, distracted to the point that he ignored Plague trying to gain his attention? Shouting down the phone to Natalie at how his father had changed his aspects of the collaboration without informing the other artist, Miss Bay. Now his job was to mediate between the pair before the show went live in a few days. This hadn't been the arrangement he'd made with his father 2 years ago in aid of protecting Marinette. Now using it as a carrot to dangle in front of him whenever there was a problem to be solved and needing to be the face of the brand. But then again, there was nothing he wouldn't do for Marinette. Oh, blast! This issue now was going to impact on Kat's date with her tomorrow if he couldn't get it sorted in time. No, this date had to happen. He had planned it all out, to the point he was going to confess everything to her. He loved her. However, all of that had now led to the artist being akumatized. He guessed it was her support and security team were the ones transformed into a group of assassins flying towards him and Ladybug swooping in to protect him, and now he wasn't able to transform into Cat. And don't get him started on how he was going to manage his damaged arm. Could this day get any worse? He tried to grit his teeth against the sharp pain around his shoulder joint and shooting bolts of lightning down his arm. Once he could convince Ladybug to hide him somewhere to allow her to fight and him to transform. Could Plague even help with covering up this injury? How was he going to explain it to Ladybug? Well, that was only an issue he had to face once he was alone, and by the look of concern on Ladybug's face right this second, he wasn't sure when that would be. Well, you should be healed by the Miraculous Ladybugs at the end, but first I need to capture the Akuma. But I'm sorry. She did that expression of mixed emotions, furrowing her eyebrows in concern whilst pursing her lips together, but with a slight lift in the corner of her mouth. He wanted to reassure his partner that he will be fine. It was no big deal. None of this was on her. In fact, it was all on him. Ladybug, this isn't your fault. I should have been... I know better than to be out on the street. I was the one distracted. He angled his head, trying to look at her in the face. More like yelling at someone on the phone. Must say, I haven't seen that side of you, but it's been a while since we've crossed paths. For the first time, she shifted her gaze towards his eyes and felt the nervousness behind them. I suppose it has been. She quickly turned her back to him. Kat knew Ladybug all too well now. She was hiding something. She was avoiding something or someone. Him? I need to wrap your arm up like a sling. It might help with the pain and stop any further damage. I will be right back. Should be able to get something from my mart. Now was not the time to scavenge through the shops. Not when he had... Wait, what about this? Adrien gritted his teeth as he let go of his damaged arm so he could pull it out of his pocket. Would this scarf work? It would be fine. If any damage came to it, the tiny bugs would fix it, right? It's summer and you have a scarf? He was surprised by Ladybug's laugh, but then even more so as he watched her eyes widened at the sight of the blue scarf. It's not like Ladybug would recognize it. A special friend gave it to me as a gift. A friend? A special friend? For a moment, Adrien became lost in the memory of a younger Marinette, all flustered, standing in front of him, holding out the gift box. If only he had accepted it, and not let Chloe ruin things yet again. He rubbed the material between his fingers in a gentle manner. It's a long story, but the cliff notes are, it was implied it was from my father, but I later discovered it was from Marinette. Your special friend? That tone didn't sound like Ladybug. What was making her act like this? They had fought in Akuma the other day. She even seemed fine then, if not a little flirty with Cat, but they were just good friends now. The best of friends. He loved Marinette. Wait. Didn't she imply before that she was kind of friends with Ladybug? Maybe she knows about Adrien. What he did to her? Oh, this was not good. Well, like I said, it's a long story. Maybe some other time. Ladybug snatched the scarf out of his hand and stretched it out, as if measuring it. Strange. It reminded him of... This should work as a sling. It's strong, being knitted together. He watched how she focused on the task, carefully, gently supporting the weight of his arm as she tied it off around his neck. Why were Ladybug's mannerisms suddenly reminding him of Marinette when they hadn't done before? How does that feel? Why was she taking the time to care for him when she had an Akuma to battle? Better, thank you, Ladybug, but hadn't? You must have meant a lot to her for such a gift. Are you still close, since you have the scarf? In summer. Air lodged in his throat, unable to breathe in or out. It simply lingered as the words buffered around his mind. Why was she asking about the scarf? Why would it matter to her if he had a scarf in his pocket from a friend? If she knew what happened between himself and Marinette, why was she acting like this? And why now? Oh, crackers. What should he say? He found it impossible to hold her gaze as she looked at him with a questioning ladybug stare, feeling the reaction it was having on his body, feeling the need to cave in on himself. Marinette is... His eyes suddenly darted to the side towards the black form standing on the building opposite them, lifting his arms, stretching out. Adrien's free hand reached out to her. "Watch out!" he yelled, grabbing at her arm and using his body weight. He flung her out of the way from an oncoming arrow. They both slammed into the nearest dome. He cried out in pain as the impact shot through his shoulder and ricocheted out of his chest and fingers. "Thanks." Her voice was soft, their faces close enough that he felt her breath on his cheek and stared at the familiar blue eyes. "No, shake it off. It's Ladybug. You no longer have feelings for her." "Are you all right?" "I think we'd better move from here and find somewhere safer." He let go of his grip around her waist and took a step back, while studying the spot where the assassin was still perched, waiting for another opening. "We need to move fast. The figure, it's still there." He glanced back at Ladybug and noticed she too was blushing slightly underneath her mask. "Yeah, okay. There's a spot nearby that Cat and I use. It's kind of unusual, but it should give us enough shelter so that you can explain to me what is happening and who has been akumatized since they won you." Ladybug pulled him in close just as another arrow zipped past his chest and smashed into the side of the dome window next to them. "I need you to grip onto me as hard as you can." A rush of heat filled his face and radiated out of his cheeks. Why on earth was Ladybug yanking this form of reaction out of him? The slates gave way to air. The wind cooled his skin and his stomach lurched with the swing-like motion. But he knew where they were heading. St. Vincent Cemetery, on the other side of Montmartre and back towards the city centre. They had discovered this strange spot a year ago during an Akuma fight, using it for much cover like now, and found themselves returning, sitting amongst the once legendary artists of Montmartre, with the high overhanging buildings circling around the square, rows of trees and their branches filled with fresh green leaves, providing protection for the grand tombs coated in moss and ivy. But the spot they used from time to time was in the far corner, next to a family grave that seemed to be forgotten about long ago. His shoes clicked on the worn-down flagstones. It was strange to hear the sound when he was used to the silence of his boots. The revelation brought a smile to his face. He was grateful Ladybug had chosen to bring them here, and felt a bizarre sense of security at the silent surroundings. "Do you think we were followed? I didn't see Princess Fang and her group of assassins in pursuit." "I know it's not usual to bring Adrien She paused and looked around, pressing her lips together. "We should be safe here, at least for a while, and I can figure out how to defeat her. Plus, Cat knows of this place and might find us here." She let go of Adrien and opened her yo-yo, staring at the screen as if she was expecting a phone call like a pining teenager. Why hasn't he messaged me? He would normally reach out by now. It's not like him. She huffed, closing it shut and placing it back round her waist. He felt a blush forming on his cheeks for another reason now. "How are you feeling now? Are you getting a fever? Your cheeks are flushed. Were you cut and didn't tell me about it?" Without warning, Ladybug put her hand to his forehead and then laughed, pulling it away again. "Sorry, it's not like I could feel it anyhow with the suit on. It's fine. It must be the pain caused it to happen." He ambled over to a nearby bench and took a seat, bewildered at what was going on between them. It was starting to feel like the past 2 or more years hadn't happened. "So why this villain? Princess Fang and her group of assassins after you?" She perched at the end of the bench as far away from him as possible. "I think it's Miss Bay and her support team, and possibly her security team too. She is a designer from Shanghai who my father has been collaborating with for the past 6 months. However, Mr. Aggressed, being Mr. Aggressed, asked me to support and oversee the final show coming together, whilst at the last second changed the key piece of the design without informing the other designer until this morning. Why? I mean, why does he do it? Why does he have to make my life so difficult that only his opinion matters? I'm sick of him. I'm sick of... Ugh. Sorry. He was standing now, holding his good arm up in the air as if pleading to a higher power for answers, his heart thumping in his chest as a tingling sensation coursed through him. It felt good to let it out like that. One of the downsides of Cat, no matter how many times Ladybug or Marinette asked if he was alright when he was clearly stressed, he was never able to express himself so freely. and due to the aftermath of how he treated Marinette, there wasn't a great deal of friends Adrien, could lean on. Ladybug awkwardly rose to her feet, clearly shocked by what she had witnessed, but there was a softness in her blue eyes, suggesting concern for a friend. She reached out her hand in front and took a step closer. It lingered in the air before falling by her side. "Don't be. It sounds like you needed to vent. I get that. But why put up with it? Have you told him how you feel?" He shifted his gaze to his beloved blue scarf, the first token Marinette had given to him to express her feelings towards Adrien, her first act of selfless love, a reminder of why he was putting up with his father, after he had threatened to blacklist Marinette from the design world, including her place at art college, if he didn't sever all ties with her in that instant. And he knew his father could be that cruel, that calculated, cold focus, working out how to get what he wanted out of the situation, knowing he had all the power. He carefully rubbed his cheek against the soft material on his shoulder, secretly smearing the single tear which had broken free. "There is no use. He pinned me into a corner a while ago. It's a long story." Yes, it had been good to vent to Ladybug, but the secret was still his to keep until he was able to confide in Marinette first, knowing how disappointed she will be with him, sacrificing for her, but he would do anything for her. "You seem to have a lot of long stories nowadays, Adrien. I suppose it's one of the costs of not seeing each other in a while." The words hovered in the air between them and convey a deeper meaning. Yeah. Anyhow, we should focus. I mean, you, Ladybug, and then leave me here. I'm sure I will be safe enough." He ran his hand through his hair, wishing he could grab a moment alone to speak to Plag in his pocket. "They're after you. They're after the Miraculous, you and Cat, when he shows up." Ladybug stepped closer and narrowed her eyes at him. "Adrien, you are injured. You can't take the chance if they do find you. But I will only hold you back from fighting if all you are doing is babysitting me." Adrien hadn't meant to raise his voice at Ladybug, but the frustration was bubbling up inside of him and bursting out. "Capturing the Akuma is what matters, not me." "I know this, Adrien," she snapped back. "But my job is also to protect the civilians, especially when they are the target. Now, if I had Cat..." "Oh, where is he? I can't do it without him, and it's not like I can call on another holder." He watched the anger in her expression transformed into panic. "Take a deep breath, Ladybug. We can come up with a solution together." Without thinking, he circled his good arm around her and held her tight, a move Cat would perform when it looked like his lady was on the brink of a panic attack. She inhaled deeply, crushing against his damaged arm as he fought back the pain. Oh, what should he do? This was not the plan. To hide away whilst Paris got attacked? All because Ladybug didn't want to leave Adrien. But he wasn't just Adrien, he was Cat Noir, the only person who could help her, not hinder her. No, he no longer had a choice. Ideally, he wanted to tell Marinette first, but maybe now was the time he revealed to Ladybug his identity. It was the only solution he could think of. It was the only way to save Paris. To save Marinette. "Ladybug, I need to tell you something, but promise me you will keep breathing." He waited for the nod of her head against his chest. Okay, he was going to do it. He inhaled deeply and engulfed the scent of raspberries and vanilla, reminding him of A surge of wind channeled through the graves and almost knocking them off their feet as the princess glided to a stop in front of them, grinning in delight. She looked nothing like Miss Bai now, who was normally controlled and restricted, but rather a martial arts warrior from his old manga comics, or a character from a show he had seen Marinette watching. Ladybug and Adrien aggressed together, Princess Fang announced with glee as she scanned the surroundings. Now, where is Cat Noir? Is he hiding somewhere, ready to pounce? Stand behind me, Ladybug muttered underneath her breath as she whipped out a yo-yo and stepped out in front. I will make it easy for you. Hand over Mr. Agress and your Miraculous, and I won't unleash my army upon you. The princess flapped back her sleeves in response to the swirling yo-yo. Was this his chance? Whilst Ladybug was distracted, could he run off and transform? How much he wished he was holding his baton at this moment. That will never happen. You can't have Adrien nor my Miraculous. But I will find where the Akuma is hidden. Ladybug glanced back at him, freezing him to the spot. Maybe it wasn't going to be so easy after all. I'm pleased to hear that. The velvet voice brought a shiver to travel down his back. Princess Fang leapt into the air, threw out her arm as a long piece of silk fabric was unleashed from her sleeve, hitting against the yo-yo like an iron fist, causing Ladybug to jump back in defense. Adrien needed to act. He needed a weapon, something to fight, but the only thing around him were rocks and a few scattered of sticks a child would use as a sword. How was this going to fend off the 10 assassins who were making their way across the graves and towards him? Thank you for listening to part 2 of Chance Encounter. I hope you're enjoying it so far. If you are, make sure you smash that like button. It really does help to support the channel and it gives me a boost. And make sure you comment down below what you thought of it and what will happen in part 3, which you do not want to miss out on. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on this series and other one-shots are happening at the moment. And I hope you are good, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.